So it's been a while, and I don't think... Okay, everything's good. Cool. All right, so today's going to be narcissism breakdown. I've done all these research papers. You don't have to necessarily watch this video in order to read the research paper. I'll have it in the description. To be honest, the research paper is going to be a lot more fun to listen to or to read than listening to me, because screw my voice. I've also got a bunch of other ones that I want to do. I don't know if I'll do my subjective personal development one, so that's more of a personal thing, which is based off of the more objective view of personal development, long-term planning, self-sufficiency, and life satisfaction, which this was a fun one to do. It's 20 pages long, which covers different scales that measure life happiness and overall satisfaction. I've also got attachment theory, an objective view on we desire the love we believe we deserve, which is an 18-page paper. I have an opinion one, the longingness complex, falling in love with the reward of the journey. This one's a fun one, which is based off of, this is a subjective view of attachment theory. It's like a personal interpretation. The art of deliberate practice, learn the rules like a professional so you can break them like an artist. This one's a pretty short read. And then today's episode, which is narcissism, which this one was fun to do because it took me... This was the first one that I finished, and then I revised the entire thing because I looked back on it and it just didn't make any sense. So I'll give you a overall overview of this before going through the meat of it, just so if you don't have time to listen to the entire episode, don't worry about it. Narcissism, why do people choose to hurt other people? All the citations, all the different things that I have here, the theories, frameworks, tests, are not infallible. If the results say something about you that's not true, you are right and it is wrong. So if you do a narcissistic personality disorder test, which I'll cover what narcissistic personality is, or NPC, narcissistic personality disorder. If it says that you're one thing, but you're I'm actually this, go with what you say, because they're just tests. It's just theories. I did the Big Five test of the Big Five factor test, and it said I like to party, and I don't like to party. I hate crowds, so it was 90% accurate though, so which is scary in a way. There's one other thing I wanted to mention about narcissism. Yeah, I want to be clear about one thing. Words are just words. How people define those words, especially when it comes to analyzing other people, can be the difference between understanding, seeing someone for just being human, and ignorance, disregarding that we all make mistakes and we have our own complicated, not complex emotions. It is my opinion, but I'll get to these. Where did I say these? There's somewhere in here where I say that if you're watching this or you're reading this paper because you want to point out to someone that they're being narcissistic and being oh, well, I can identify narcissists now, you are part of the problem. Don't twist people's minds and being here is what I think you are, so I'm going to ask you all of these questions to lead up to the fact that you are what I think you are. And then you become a self-fulfilling prophecy, or if you go into the placebo effect or something else where you're this is the way I think life is, therefore I'm going to find every piece of evidence to prove that to be right, even if life is actually going the other direction. But that's just a disclaimer, don't be narcissistic. Don't become, what was it? There's forgot that quote, but I'll tell you a different quote. Don't become your own worst enemy. It's your mind is whatever you make of it. But to break down narcissism in a much easier understanding, or that doesn't make any sense. Narcissism overview. So if you don't want to watch the rest of this, however long this video becomes, you don't have to. The name narcissism comes from the Greek mythological figure Narcissus, who fell in love with its own reflection. Because narcissism isn't constructed to be as simple as attachment theory. I oversimplified narcissism into 3 categories that are a personal interpretation, just to make it easier to understand all the different aspects. Because There's some names that mean 3 other names. So overall, just understand that there's a mix between my own personal interpretation and categorization versus the actual research that I cite in the paper. Oh, and by the way, this is not like a research paper that goes on like ResearchGate or something that's like peer reviewed. This is just me putting a bunch of information together and having fun with it. This is like, I'm just a passionate hobbyist. That's it. 3 different forms of narcissism. You have explicit narcissism, which can be defined as a set of personality traits associated with being outwardly confident, assertive, aggressive, and attention-seeking. Implicit narcissism can be defined as a set of personality traits associated with negative emotions like fear, anger, shame, envy, or depression, and hypersensitivity, interpersonal sensitivity, insecurity, psychoticism, English is my first language, and emotional instability. Antagonism is the middle section of traits that both explicit and implicit narcissism share, including reactive anger, arrogance, lack of empathy, manipulativeness, exploitiveness, entitlement, and cynicism/distrust. Sorry, I saw arrogance, and then I looked back at explicit narcissism. Like, once you get into, like, my brain is, like, wired for pattern recognition, so I saw arrogance with ARR, and I saw aggression, which is AGG, and I was like, those must be the same words, because they're the same, 1 letter plus 2 other letters. Anyways, these are not categories that align perfectly with the actual research, but just help to understand narcissism from, like, an entry-level point of view. 2 footnotes. Explicit narcissism is overt narcissism, which is tied to grandiosity exhibition narcissism under the 2-factor model, and agentic extroversion plus antagonism under the Trifurcated model. Implicit narcissism is covert, vulnerable sensitivity under the 2-factor model, and neuroticism plus antagonism under the Trifurcated model. I'll get into that later. It gets really complicated really quickly, so I'm trying to oversimplify it. There's also a difference between healthy selfishness, narcissistic selfishness, and pathological altruism. Healthy selfishness is the practice of appropriately prioritizing your needs and well-being. Narcissistic selfishness goes beyond healthy self-interest into a pattern where others exist primarily as extensions of the self or means to an end. Pathological altruism is when helping others actually causes harm, either to yourself or paradoxically to those you're trying to help. I only wanted to mention that because narcissism, it has a lot to do with intentions. Whether or not you intend to want to hurt someone or you intend to have one thing, but it has and I'll probably cover this later, has the collateral damage or I'll just stick with the collateral damage. It has the collateral damage of, this person got hurt, but I didn't mean for them to get hurt, so it must have been bad. It's like that one quote, we judge ourselves by our intentions and others by their behaviors. Intentions mean a lot, especially with like almost all the stuff all the different topics that I look at. Intentions mean a lot, but it's also intentions. Are those actually your intentions, or those were your intentions because the consequences happened versus your intentions when there was no risk of punishment? Hormozy, authenticity is who you are when there is no risk of punishment. So that, keep that in mind. It's like intentions, while important, can also be self-deceiving if it's like, because this happened, now I'm going to change my intentions. So, caffeine break. And then the last thing for the overview, narcissism developing from childhood development. You've got 3 different models that I could find. I'm sure there's probably more. And I also didn't look at everything. I didn't look at all the research. I only looked at whatever research I was able to do within a certain constraint of, I don't want this to be like a 40-page essay or 40-page paper that's like, here's everything about narcissism. It's like, yeah, but narcissism is going to change a little bit once like new research happens. So this is just like whatever I could find. Going back to childhood narcissism, or narcissism developing from childhood development. Kernberg's model, parental devaluation, coldness, and rejection, the childhood defensively withdraws and develops mistrust for others, only I could be trusted, develops with the child, which leads to inflated self-reliance and defensive grandiosity. Kohut's model. Failure of normal developmental processes, such as inadequate mirroring and idealization, and childhood narcissism is normal but fails to mature appropriately, leads to the person remaining stuck seeking mirroring and idealization in adult relationships. Million's model is that parental overvaluation and excessive praise leads to the child being treated as special and perfect and develops unrealistic self-illusions. And this inflated self-image cannot be sustained by the outer world. Those three, I'm sorry, my brain is like starting to go towards attachment theory because there's a lot of similarities between like infant attachment theory to adult attachment theory. I'll get into that into a different video because attachment theory is fascinating, and I only have like such a tiny part of attachment theory. There's like many books on it, and it's honestly a fascinating subject. And then the quote I have for this one, this video, this research paper, I don't know what to call this. It's not like an episode because it's not just a solo. It's just me talking, but it's a research. Anyways, the quote here: "If you get what you want by telling a lie, you are not smart enough to get it. You are not smart enough to get it by telling the truth." That's from Jordan Peterson. I don't know where that quote is from though. I saw it when I was scrolling like 5-6 years ago. And I can't find that podcast, and I'm like, I don't know. Anyways, right. So I have a reference section, which is the 5-factor narcissism inventory, FFNI, which is categorized under that Trifurcated model. I might get into this a little bit later. This basically, so the Trifurcated model, briefly, I'll expand on this in a little bit. The Trifurcated model has 3 different parts. You have neuroticism, agentic extroversion, and antagonism. This basically lists out all the sub-facets of each category to kind of like understand each one better. They're not necessary. There's neuroticism and agentic extroversion are like the 2 opposites. Like one's more introverted and one's more extroverted. And then antagonism is like the core that both of them share. And there's like a lot of similarities. There's more similarities than there are differences. Again, I'll get into that in a couple of seconds. I'll get into that once I finish introduction. Oh boy, this is going to be fun. All right, introduction. This is from Theodore Millions, which is that guy I just talked about, who talked about parental overvaluation and excessive praise. He had this quote from one of his books. "Narcissists have a tough job because perfection is viewed as either all or nothing. If you are not perfect, you are imperfect, and if you're not imperfect, you are nothing. This ego ideal must then be projected as a public persona whom others must appease with sacrifices of admiration and submission. Anything short of this ideal tarnishes the self, squashing perfection outright and leading to chronic feelings of emptiness or shame." That'll be all right. I've got four different definitions of four different definitions I'm going to cover: narcissism, egoism, egocentrism, and narcissistic personality disorder. Narcissism, by definition, from Merriam-Webster, is egocentrism English / narcissistic personality disorder, which is why I have the other 3 definitions, because Merriam-Webster is like, here's your definition, but here's 3 other definitions of this definition that goes into other words that it's like, here you to go into. I wish the dictionary was less dictionary. Narcissism is also the love or sexual desire of one's own body. This is great for someone who does jiu-jitsu. The love of one's own body. Oh yeah, now we're talking. I'm not supporting it. I'm just trying to make a joke, okay? I don't like the internet, all right? The internet's like, it seems like some people's like first time on the internet. Like, why are you saying that? Because it's the internet. This is how life is, all right? Egoism is a doctrine that the individual self-interest is the actual motive of all conscious action. A doctrine that individual self-interest is a valid end of all actions. Okay, sorry. I should have mentioned this. I merged all the definitions into one so you can kind of like just get all of them at once instead of like, oh, this is one definition, this is separate. I just merge it all together. Like screw all the different versions of it. It's like just condense it. Egoism is also excessive concern for one's self, with or without exaggerated feelings of self-importance. Egocentrism is a quality or state of being egocentric, excessive interest in one's self and concerning for one's own welfare or advantage at the expense of or in disregard of others. Narcissistic personality disorder is characterized especially by an exaggerated sense of self-importance, persistent need for admiration, lack of empathy for others, excessive pride in achievements, and snobbish, disdainful, or patronizing attitudes. To be clear, there is a difference between healthy selfishness, narcissistic selfishness, and pathological altruism. My mouth is like salivating. It's like, you're talking too much. Stop talking. Sorry, this is gonna be a weird episode because I'm gonna be reading from a paper while also trying to like realize that I'm also actively looking at a camera while doing this. So this is gonna be fun. The core distinction is healthy selfishness. Oh no, I've already covered this. Sorry, I've already covered this. I'm gonna skip those because it's the same thing I've already covered. Keep in mind collateral damage, where actions inadvertently have unintended consequences. That's the word I was looking for. Unintended consequences. Something that comes off as narcissistic could be just collateral damage. Intentions are very important. Cover that. I explore this further. I do explore. Whoa. Wait a second. I explore this further in the context section? Where? Oh yeah, healthy. Okay. Yeah, I do. I had some quotes. I might not get into the context section just because I might. We'll see. We'll see. I forgot I put that in the context section. My bad. Okay. There's 3 major categories I'm categorizing for narcissism: explicit, implicit, and antagonism. I'm oversimplifying this because I'm oversimplifying this for the main reason I got really confused when I put this together. This paper is about understanding. If you read this, if you are reading this to call people narcissistic because your pride and arrogance is high as heck, you are part of the problem. I don't mind saying that. Like, don't again. Please don't be stupid. Like, there's just like, don't use this against other people. Everyone's trying their best. As a friend of mine said, I treat everyone like Down syndrome. Like, they have Down because they're all just trying their best. It's like, that's true. This paper is also not commentary based, it's more a reference sheet. This video is probably gonna be more commentary based. So we'll have fun with that. I want to be clear with one thing. Words are just words. In my opinion, it is easier to identify when someone is intentionally being narcissistic when it's explicit and overt, especially when they are being emotionally ignorant. Like, dude, we're all human. This guy you just talked to has a harsh tone of voice. Maybe he just had a rough day. What if his mother just died? Like, I did a video, I'll probably have to redo it, on tone of voice and how someone's tone of voice can be the difference between like a good conversation and bad conversation. It's like, who cares about what we talked about? Your tone of voice was like terrible. So like, there's so many factors involved in healthy communication that like disregarding, not giving enough information, seeming reserved, especially if someone else is more sensitive to certain, like, communication should be taught in schools better, but then again, it shouldn't be taught in schools because schools are trash, or at least like most schools are trash. It is somewhat harder to see narcissistic behavior when it's implicit and covert, especially when it comes to hypermasculine men and hyperfeminine. Oh, right. Okay, so one point I made here is that when it comes to like hypermasculine men and hyperfeminine women, which I want to do a paper on masculinity versus femininity, which is actually like, they're not distinct opposites, but rather just categorized stuff that people developed over the years that don't make any sense. Anyways, sorry, that's a whole different paper. I haven't done the research for that, so I'm going to shut up before I say anything I don't want to say. Hypermasculine men and hyperfeminine women have traits that are perceived as normal because of the societal acceptance that this is just what men do or this is just what women do, can mask the truth of genuine narcissism. It's like, she's just being a woman. No. That's narcissism. Oh, he's just like, he's tired after a full day. No. That's narcissism. It's like, or that has narcissistic traits. Narcissistic personality disorder is like an actual disorder. Like, that's a level above just having traits that are not, like, people are selfish. People are naturally selfish. And if they weren't, that would be a problem, because then, like, how would the human race survive from a, like, evolutionary standpoint, like evolutionary psychology standpoint? If we weren't selfish, why would we continue going on? We would just like sit around and do nothing, and then nothing gets done, and then like the world collapses under its own lack of a foundation. So selfishness makes sense. It's just when you start using it against other people or using it to manipulate other people, then you get into like the narcissistic realm, which I don't know if I don't know if I cover this, if manipulation is part of narcissism or like it's a separate, they're distinct categories that, while have overlapping things, are not necessarily the same. Either that or I'm over caffeinated or under caffeinated. I actually just had like, I should drink more. This is just an opinion. This is versus the rest of the paper is objective. I hope is, if you're wondering what parts of our opinion, what are not, this paper is completely free. I'm not trying to monetize it because unless it's like an opinion paper where I'm just like writing stuff out, this is not going to get monetized. This is purely purely for entertainment and enjoyment of learning. I'm also trying to do this paper or doing this video in one take because as much as I don't mind editing, it's just a lot why can't I do it in one take? And that seems like more of a me problem. Okay. So this next part is going to be the meat of the paper, and this is going to be mostly research. So not necessarily commentary. I don't think I have any commentary. Yeah, okay. Until I get into the implicit and explicit section, the next couple sections are just going to be facts. And if you're I'm going to try while I'm reading this to make it audio based so that if you're listening to this, I can kind of expand on it better. So it's like you don't have to watch or you don't have to read the paper while listening to it to understand it. I might not do that very well. It's also the first video with a research paper, so I don't have any expectations for myself. Next one, I'm going to be a lot more like higher expectations. Like, you didn't do it right the first time. Do better. If you don't want to read, if you don't want to listen to the next, I will hopefully add timestamps to this. So this section is going to be narcissism in context, which is kind of compressing the next section of narcissism, which might be like longer. Anyways, narcissism in context. The Big Five framework describes human personality along 5 continuous dimensions: openness, conscientiousness, English, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. The revised Neo-Personality Inventory, which is based on the Big Five framework, is a standardized self-report questionnaire that measures the Big Five dimensions and their subfacets, such as anxiety, excitement-seeking, fantasy, and straightforwardness. So the framework is basically just a theory. The personality inventory, the Neo-Personality Inventory, is a questionnaire that measures the Big Five. Then there's the two-factor model of narcissism, which was developed by Wink in 1991, which distinguishes between grandiose narcissism and vulnerable narcissism. And in his paper, he does mention that they share commonalities, but he doesn't explicitly put those commonalities into its own category until the Trifurcated model, which I'll get to once I say about the 5-factor narcissism inventory, which was done in 2012-2016. The 5-factor narcissism inventory bridges general personality structure of the Big Five and narcissism research of the 2-factor model and reframes them as maladaptive expressions of normal personality facets. I'll expand on this later. I'm sorry. There's I want to give you a summary if you don't want to watch this entire video, but also it's context matters and additional information matters. On the Trifurcated model, which refined on the 2-factor model by separating narcissism into 3 components: agentic, extroversion, antagonism, and neuroticism, which helped isolate antagonism, the antagonistic core that grandiose and vulnerable narcissism share. So the 2-factor model had 2 categories. Trifurcated model kind of made those 2 categories and added a 3rd one because agentic narcissism is very agentic. Antagonistic narcissism has a lot of commonalities. So categorizing that separately, much easier to understand. And also it's if you had to look at one research paper, I would look at the Trifurcated model, which was done in 2019, so it's also relatively up to date. And then narcissistic personality disorder, which I've already covered the dictionary definition, but there's also like a more general definition, is clinical diagnosis distinct from simply having narcissistic traits. So you can have narcissistic traits and not necessarily have narcissistic personality disorder. The difference is about pervasiveness, rigidity, and the degree to which the patterns cause functional impairment across relationships, work, and self-understanding. All right, after this, until I get into implicit versus explicit, or like my own categorization of narcissism, the next part is just going to be what I just told you expanded. The Big Five framework is a widely accepted theoretical framework and personality disorder that identifies 5 broad bipolar dimensions of personality. You have neuroticism and its opposite, emotional stability; extroversion and its opposite, introversion; openness and its opposite, closeness to experience; agreeableness versus antagonism; and conscientiousness versus impulsivity. More specifically, neuroticism is emotional distress versus emotional stability. Extroversion is agentic and thrill-seeking versus sober and solitary, like solitary confinement, like by yourself. I know I need to enunciate things better, but this is ridiculous. These words are like, I'm not dumb. English is my first language, all right? I don't know why I have these problems. Openness is curious and unconventional versus traditional and pragmatic. Agreeableness, kind and trusting versus competitive and arrogant. And conscientiousness, disciplined and fidacious versus laid back and careless. The Big Five framework itself could be an entire paper. If you want to read more about it, the Big Five, where is it? Samuel and Whittaker, Widiger, 2008. If you want to, I have all my citations in the paper. If you want to like look at the citations and then read the respective paper, go for it. Like, psychology is such a fascinating subject, and the people who put these together are 20,000 times more intelligent than I am. I'm just having fun putting them together, like putting them all into one place that I find fascinating. So, just a passionate hobbyist. That's it. The revised Neo personality inventory, and for context, Neo refers to neuroticism, extroversion, and openness, because when they first introduced the questionnaire, that's all they knew. And then when agreeableness and conscientiousness came in within the Big Five framework, then they revised it to the revised Neo personality inventory. The full comprehensive version, the Neo PIR, Neo personality revised inventory. No, Neo personality inventory revised. Okay, this is not that important, all right? So just don't worry about it. Has a 5 broad domains of personality of the Big Five, and then the 6 subfacets per domain. I do list out the evolution of the test from 1978, when it was just the original Neo, the original neuroticism, extroversion, openness, and then when it got to 1992, they added, 1992, they revised it, so it's a lot better. The subfacets of the test, oh geez, this is gonna be a lot. I'm just gonna run through these really quickly. There's a lot of nuances. Please refer to their 1992 manual, Costa and McRae's 1992 manual, for the definitions and the differences between a person who is high versus a person who is low in each subfacet, which is on pages 14 through 18. If you want to just reference something, it is fascinating, but I can't copy all of it. Otherwise, it will turn into like a 3-page thing, and now it's like there's copyright concerns. But overall, neuroticism has anxiety, angry hostility, depression, self-conscientiousness, impulsivity, and vulnerability. Extroversion has warmth, gregariousness, assertiveness, activity, excitement-seeking, and positive emotions. Openness, fantasy, aesthetics, feelings, actions, ideas, and values. Agreeableness, trust, straightforwardness, altruism, compliance. We're going to start a new world order. Compliance, modesty, and tender-mindedness. Tender-mindedness. Ay, English. Conscientiousness has competence, order, dutifulness, I believe like duty, dutifulness, achievement, striving, self-discipline, and deliberation. 1992, pages 14 through 18. Well, let me see if I can find the name of it. Anyways, 1992 manual. References are in the paper. The two-factor model, which is based on Wink's work on his work, Two Faces of Narcissism. In the present study, 6 Minnesota multifaceted. In the present study, 6 MMPI, which is a personality inventory, narcissism scales were used to study the relationship between those narcissism measures that emphasize grandeur and exhibitionism and those that focus on vulnerability and sensitivity. Vulnerability sensitivity was associated with introversion, defensiveness, anxiety, and vulnerability to life's traumas. Grandiosity exhibitionism was related to extroversion, self-assurance, exhibitionism, and aggression. I'm going to oversimplify it to extroverted or explicit versus implicit. Again, I'll get into that in a couple seconds. The 5-factor narcissism inventory, which was done, I want to say 2016. Here, let me make sure I got this. 2012. This one is kind of like the Trifurcated model. It's like this is more up to date than the 1980s, 1990s research. So the 5-factor narcissism inventory draws from both the Big Five general framework and the revised neo-personality inventory facets while incorporating Wink's two-factor model. So now it's like two-factor model plus the inventory plus the questionnaire plus the Big Five. I have a pen. I have an apple. Oh, 5-factor narcissism inventory. I'm just going to go through this again. Again, there's a lot of words, and words mean whatever words mean. So refer to the original source if you want how they defined it, because how they define it and what the dictionary says is defined as might be two different things. Neuroticism has 4 different subsets: reactive anger, shame, indifference, and need for admiration. Extroversion has 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 different subsets. Exhibitionism, authoritativeness, thrill-seeking, and openness to... Oh, no, that's it. Sorry. 3, extroversion. Extroversion has exhibitionism, authoritativeness, and thrill-seeking. I have to slow down when I say this stuff because it's having too much fun with this. Okay? I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, but I am sorry. I apologize that there's all these random commentary spurts for no reason, but I'm not sorry because I love this. Openness has 1 category or 1 subfacet, which is grandiose fantasies. And then low agreeable. Sorry, I should probably mention these. So this is in the personality inventory of the Big Five, that's not specifically towards the neo personality inventory. That's not specifically narcissism. This is specifically narcissism. The Big Five and neo personality inventory are broader frameworks, and then the 5-factor narcissism inventory is a sub of taking that framework and applying it specifically to narcissism. I should have made that clear. I apologize for not making that clear. This is specifically towards narcissism itself, not necessarily personality as a whole. Low agreeableness, which is cynicism, distrust, manipulativeness, exploitiveness, entitlement, arrogance, and lack of empathy. And then under conscientiousness is acclaim seeking, which is achievement and striving for achievement. I have all the different subsets here in my paper. Just read the paper if it's easier that way. Trifurcated model. I covered this more in the 2019 study by Crow et al., which validated the 2016 study, I think, was a comprehensive empirical integration designed to reconcile all existing narcissism measures into one structural model, using an item pool of 591 participants completing 303 3 narcissistic items each, encompassing 46 narcissism scales and subscales. You can do the math if you want. That's a lot of data. That's a lot of data. Overall, agentic extroversion. So they categorize it: agentic extroversion, narcissism, neuroticism, and antagonism. Agentic extroversion is about self-promotion. Narcissistic neuroticism is about self-protection, and antagonism is about self-centeredness at others' expense. This is, and then the following are quotes from the 2019 paper. The factors observed at the 3-factor level appear consistent with the 3-factor structure of the 5-factor narcissism inventory. The factor labels were modified slightly to reflect the belief that these traits are specific expressions of general personality domains. The factor 3.1 was, so they, oh geez, I'm sorry, I've also had a bunch of context. So they basically took, if I remember correctly, 5 domains, 5 broad, like think of like an inverse triangle. Sorry, that should be closer to my microphone. Think of it like an inverse triangle where you have at the very top like general personality, and then as you get down the triangle towards the what would be on top, but it's at the bottom. The once you get to the very bottom, it like simplifies it. So they have like factor 1, factor 2, factor 3, factor 4, factor 5, and it's like here's general. Let's make it specific. So factor 3.1 was labeled agentic extroversion, and its strongest correlates were modesty and assertiveness. Factor 3.2 was labeled narcissistic neuroticism, and its strongest associations were the facets neuroticism, which is anxiety and depression. Self-centered antagonism included items, which is factor 3.3, included items related to willingness to exploit others for personal gain, a sense of entitlement, and a lack of empathy, including negative associations with all facets of agreeableness, as well as a negative association with dutifulness, a facet of conscientiousness. Yeah. Too much saliva in my mouth. I shouldn't say that. Oh my goodness. Oh wow. Why is Aaron's mouth still salivating? Oh, I wonder what he's doing today. I love the people I know, but sometimes I don't. I also don't like the way I think sometimes. It's just like, hey, look, a tangent. I should talk about it. Yeah. No, please. I need to put a better filter. From the 2016 paper. I think I've already covered this, actually. Yeah, I've already covered this. My bad. Yeah, I've already covered that. And... No, I haven't. So from the 26... Which one's the 26... Okay. From the 2016 paper on the 5-factor narcissism inventory, which is different from the 2012 5-factor narcissism. What? Oh, right. The 2016 validated 2012? Like I said, passionate hobbyist. Neuroticism was measured as a mean of scales shame, indifference, and need for admiration. This is why there's so many different categorizations and different interpretations. I'm trying to do an overall encompassing yet comprehensive view of narcissism, but the problem is like everyone has different ways of categorizing it, and then as it gets newer, it's like, yes, it's cool. Like I could do the paper just on the most like the research done in like the last decade-ish, but the problem is like I'm also interested in how did it start? Like where did narcissism start, and how did it develop into what it is now? Because it's like just taking something for what it is one thing, but taking it because all these other things don't make any sense. Oh, all the past things were good, yet just not fully informed. It's like I want to see all of it. I want to see why it developed the way it is. Kind of like history. It's like if you understand your history, you understand how the world operates in a sense. Anyway, sorry. Let me restart the 2016 one. 2016's thing. Neuroticism was measured as a mean of the scales of mean as in the average of the scales: shame, indifference, and need for admiration. Agentic extroversion was measured as a means of this. Was measured as the average. Sorry, I'm just gonna say average instead of means because it's like English. Average of the scales: acclaim-seeking, authoritativeness, and grandiose fantasies and exhibitionism. Antagonism was measured as the average of the subscales: manipulativeness, exploitiveness, entitlement, lack of empathy, arrogance, reactive anger, distrust, and thrill-seeking. Thrill-seeking. Remember that thing I was trying to tell you about, like different levels and different like factors and like how it's an inverse triangle? Yeah, apparently I'd covered that in the next one. Oh man, I thought I was smart for a second. It's like, oh no, I already covered it. I'm going to skip this section just because it'll make it way more complicated than it is, but to oversimplify it so it's not complicated. The narcissism hierarchy, which was from the 2019 paper, there's different levels. Level 1 started with just narcissism, what's common to all narcissistic traits, and went down to level 5, which split it into 5 different factors. But the level 3 is what they ended up going with because it was like the most accurate, or the most it was considered to be the most empirically supported structure. I would say if you wanted to know the history of narcissism and where like the various different ways of structuring it, you can look at this section, the narcissism hierarchy. But I'm gonna skip it just because I don't want to overcomplicate it. Narcissistic personality disorder, which it will be the third time I'm defining this from 3 different sources. Fantastic. This is from the American Psychological Association's Dictionary of Psychology's definition. I do want to point out, give me 1 second, sorry, I just want to make sure I get the date on this right. APA Dictionary of Psychology retrieved. I guess I don't have it in the citations. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe it was like last updated in 2018 or something. So given that was before like the 2019 paper, and the fact that I don't think the dictionary gets updated very often, which makes sense because the psychology expands so rapidly all the time. This might be an out-of-date definition, but it does add a lot of nice context to narcissistic personality disorder. So I just want to get that out. Narcissistic personality disorder is a disorder with the following characteristics. A long-standing pattern of grandiose self-importance and exaggerated sense of talent and achievement. B, fantasies of unlimited sex, power, brilliance, or beauty. C, an exhibitionistic oh boy, English, need for attention and admiration. D, either cool indifference or feelings of rage, humiliation, or emptiness as a response to criticism, indifference, or defeat. And E, various interpersonal disturbances such as feeling entitled to special favors, taking advantage of others, and inability to empathize with the feelings of others. There's a lot of people I'm thinking about while I'm reading that, but at the same time, it's like I don't know everything. It's like you will only know as much as people are willing to tell you. So while it's like, this is a narcissist, this is a narcissist. No, I don't know all the information I need to know. Sometimes it's like, and I'll cover this later, narcissism develops as, Narcissism develops as an underdeveloped, as it doesn't naturally get outgrown from childhood development. So it's like children are naturally narcissistic. That's pretty obvious. And as they grow, if they don't outgrow that narcissism, they start taking that narcissistic personality traits and start applying it to other people. And it's like, if it's explicit, it's easy to understand because it's like their tone of voice is different, their way that they speak. Like you can kind of like there's explicit evidence that you can mentally start going through and be like, that person's not for me. That person just wants what they want. And if I'm in the way, I'm just in the way. That's one thing. But then there's also implicit narcissism, which is like, you don't really notice it until it's evidence built over time, not just evidence within a short amount of time. This is an opinion, just an opinion. Life, I have a lot of papers and a lot of different things I'm going through. I'm also going through deliberate ignorance, confidence, rebellious dependency conflict of like attachment theory, like rebellious dependency, like you're at a younger age still dependent on, or either like you're younger age still dependent on your parents, but won't have that like rebellious spirit, or you have like a partner and that person, and you're like, you depend on them for being the money, the bread maker, the person bringing the money, but then you have this like rebelliousness that you still want your autonomy and your self-independence. So then that goes like interpersonal dependence and all that good stuff. So there's that one. The inner critic, like optimism, pessimism, and having that, evidence needs, which is a personal thing. Like I need evidence for everything. I need a purpose for everything. Like if there's no purpose, then why am I doing it? There's a lot of different parts to human psychology and behavior and why we do the things we do. So I don't want it to be like a, there's there's narcissism, but there's also unrealized psychological defense. It's like, and I'm going to say this from a personal opinion, not necessarily from society as a whole, where you have, this is how I want to live my life, and then you realize at some point, I realized at some point that I've been doing that because I haven't addressed this insecurity. And once I do address that insecurity, now it's like, I'm not going that way anymore. I'm going to go this way because this is a much healthier way of living. Like a couple months ago, I would have said I don't love myself. And now it's like, I have all the evidence in the world that I do love myself. I just don't see it that way. Sorry, let me see if I might have it. 1 second. Let me see if I can find the quote, because I want to, it's a good quote and I want to make sure I get it right when I say it. The amount of good things in your life depends on your ability to see them. The mind is its own place. That's one quote. This is a separate quote. The mind is its own place and in itself. Sorry. I'm going to pause for a second. The mind is its own place and in itself. It can make heaven of hell and a hell of heaven. So, sorry. Commentary tangent, not necessary. I'm going to get a little more caffeine and then I'm going to get to the next part of the paper. I'm actually having a lot of fun with this. I've been recording. So this is what, 48 minutes so far. I kind of like this. I genuinely like this. This is really enjoyable. Like I'm in such flow state right now. Oh my goodness. I should probably do this more often. Maybe I should start a podcast. That would be insane. All right. Implicit and explicit. Yeah. There will be repeated definitions in the next sections, meaning if you've already, I did this if you were reading this, or I'm talking about it, so I'm going to tell you. I'm going to have some overlapping things. I might redefine stuff. So if you've been through the last, however, like 30 minutes and you're like, so now we're going to be talking about, like, well, now you're going to be like organizing better for me. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not, I am. I might redo this, I might, like, later on, I might do a new one of this. The implicit and explicit categorization is also a creative rendition for oversimplification's sake. Yeah. There's a lot of tangents. There's a lot of stuff. Okay. So if you already understand narcissism and all the stuff I've already covered, and you don't need like the categorization, then you can skip to the next section, which is narcissism and the illusion of confidence, which are more, I'm taking narcissism and adding more context to it instead of just like pure definitions like, this and that, narcissism plus this other stuff to add more context. But then there's also the entire concept of psychology, which is like everything. It's like, yes, they're all connected. My mind is like a spider web, and there's like little boxes all over the place at every single intersection of the spider web, and within each box is like its own spider web, and then like sometimes the spider webs have little outshoots that go to other boxes, not a lot, but a couple. And then sometimes it would go like all the way around to another box on the other side of the spider web. And then I'm like, I'm just going to get back into what I was talking about. Implicit narcissism combines covert vulnerability sensitivity and neuroticism. Vulnerability sensitivity was associated with introversion, hypersensitivity, defensiveness, anxiety, and vulnerability to life's traumas. Covertly narcissistic individuals appear to be hypersensitive, anxious, timid, and insecure, but on close contact, surprise observers with their grandiose fantasies. Neuroticism was measured as the average of the scales shame, indifference, and need for admiration. Implicit narcissism can be defined as a set of personality traits associated with negative emotions such as fear, anger, shame, envy, or depression, and hypersensitivity. Interpersonal sensitivity, insecurity, psychoticism, and emotional instability. Sorry, there are parentheses in here. I don't know how to parentheses my words while I'm talking. I would guess that would be tone of voice and inflections of voice. Psychoticism is, I'm glad I defined this, is a dimension of personality in someone's dimensions categorized by aggression, impulsivity, aloofness, I like that word, aloofness, and antisocial behavior, indicating a susceptibility to psychosis and psychopathic disorders. And you can also reference antisocial personality disorder. It's basically just, I can't say certain, I'm trying to keep these PG-13, so I can't say certain words. All right, going back, so that was psychoticism. These emotions are often felt, within implicit narcissism. These emotions are felt more often and intensely, causing actions that are or can be interpreted as defensive, anxious, hypersensitive, introverted, and or socially insecure, among other emotions. Implicit narcissistic people may bring about self-indulgence, arrogance, and insistence on getting their way within relationships. Implicit narcissistic actions, which may start as small here and there, build to larger problems, such as lacking confidence in social and leadership situations. 29. Right. So this one's more of an opinionated thing. What I mean by implicit narcissistic actions may start small here and there is like the opposite of, or it's consistency, but towards negative outcomes. So overall, like if in a general sense, consistency is a generally good thing. Being consistent, being I don't mean from like a routine way that's predictable, but consistently doing things like I guess I can go back to self-love, saying like loving myself, consistently saying, "Oh, I'm not worthy of love," or I enjoy suffering, which has been something I've said to myself for a long time. I enjoy suffering. That's not gonna. I'm gonna consistently be looking for more ways to suffer because I told myself that I love suffering. So I'm gonna find more ways to suffer. Which, while yes, it does make me a little more efficient, it doesn't increase the enjoyment of doing it. So I'd rather decrease efficiency a little bit and increase enjoyment. This way, that efficiency now comes back up because now I enjoy it. So it's like I'll do more of it. So implicit narcissistic actions may build over time and not necessarily be as like explicit narcissism, which I'll cover in just a second. It's more like here and now versus this is something like resentment's build over time, or getting your way has been subtle and small, but once like give me a second, I have a tangent, commentary tangent. Lost it. Okay. Explicit narcissism. Fantastic. Explicit narcissism combines overt grandiosity, exhibitionism, and agentic extroversion. I did not capitalize that properly. Oh boy. Oh boy. I don't know what I'm doing. Just know, like, if you want to criticize me for like, oh, you didn't capitalize that, do that, please. I'll be happy to like revise it. And this was already a February 19th revision. Today's March 5th. So it is what it is. Explicit narcissism, when it is overt, Narcissistic grandiosity leads to a direct expression of exhibitionism, self-importance, and preoccupation with receiving attention and admiration from others. Grandiosity exhibitionism was related to extroversion, aggressiveness, agreeableness. Grandiose explicit narcissism was associated with agreeableness. Yeah, so I'm very agreeable with that. Aggressiveness, self-assuredness, and the need to be admired by others. Admiration from others or social validation seems to be like a massive, seems to be very well connected when it comes to narcissism. Having this, the one tangent, I might cover this. Narcissists tend to date or to be in relationships with other narcissists. And, sorry, I'm going to go on a commentary tangent right here. There's a difference between, like, for example, there's a difference between mirroring versus reciprocity, in a sense. So I'm thinking from a like a theoretical standpoint. If you have someone who's genuinely narcissistic, who enjoys the love for themselves, there may be a mirroring, while good, can be used against yourself in a way, because narcissists like themselves. So if you're someone who mirrors other people to kind of be like, hey, I like you, I like these parts of you, I'm going to mirror that. That's one thing. It's like you might attract, and if you're going for like romantic relationships and you're like, I really like you, so I'm going to mirror these different quirks about you, that might be narcissist. You might be attracting narcissists, where it's like, again, I'm not a therapist. I'm like, this is just my own personal interpretation. I might change it down the line. Whereas reciprocity of, hey, I want other people to see me the way I see myself, reciprocity should not be expected. Like reciprocity of being seen, reciprocity feeling heard, it's like that's not other people's responsibility unless you explicitly ask them, which goes into like a whole different tangent of direct versus indirect versus implicit versus explicit communication, which I do want to cover in a different paper. Basically, I hate indirect communication. Like, I don't understand it. I've never understood it. And it's such a waste of time. Like, just tell me, even if it hurts. I would rather it hurt than, I would rather suffer knowing the truth than be happy in my delusions. Not, I prefer my illusions, for they are often kinder than the truth. It's like, the truth itself is not kind. However, I would rather know the truth and be able to learn from it than not know it at all. Anyways, feelings, emotions. Jeez, that's a whole different tangent on its own. Sorry, back to explicit narcissism. Similarly, there is a 1949, which is a lot older, notion of phallic narcissism, which stresses arrogant self-assurance, blatant self-confidence, and flagrant display of superiority. I expand this in the context section. It's like a side tangent. I found it and I was like, oh, that's interesting. But I don't think it significantly contributes to narcissism as a whole, because it's 1949. That's a long time ago. Explicit narcissism also has agentic extroversion, which measures acclaim-seeking, authoritativeness, grandiose fantasies, and exhibitionism. Wasn't that in implicit? Uh-oh. I don't think I delete. Darn. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Oh, 1 second. Let me make sure that I didn't get this wrong. Yeah. What? Grandiose fantasies seem to be both in implicit and explicit, depending on who you're talking to. Side note, grandiose fantasies may be tossed around. Like on some models it's implicit, some models it's explicit. According to the five-factor narcissistic personality, it's agentic. It's under agentic extroversion. Grandiose fantasies, assessing fantasies of grandeur and success, preoccupations with fantasies of future glory, and a tendency to distort reality to achieve an overly positive view of past, current, or future accomplishments. But is that extroverted or is that anyways? Was that explicit or is that implicit? Like, keep that in mind. If you want to, if it's really that important, I might do another revise this. I'll figure it out later. Explicit narcissism can be defined as a set of personality traits associated with being outwardly confident, assertive, aggressive, and arrogance. Okay, sorry. Remember when I told you like one letter plus two other letters, pattern recognition? Yeah, happened again. Sorry. Aggressiveness and attention seeking. This can be displayed as a high social poise, a need for power and admiration, manipulativeness and disregard for others, show-offs, egotistical and self-centered. It is also associated with subjective well-being, initial popularity, attractiveness, assertiveness, same pattern recognition, attractiveness, assertiveness, dominance, and a strong desire for attention and admiration. Attention, attractiveness, assertiveness, aggressive, arrogance. One letter. It starts with an A, and it has two letters that are the same right after it. My mind is working against me, and I don't like it. So that's implicit and explicit narcissism. Antagonism. This one's going to be fun. Antagonism is the middle section of traits that both explicit and implicit narcissism share, including... I think I already said this. Implicit, explicit, those are my own personal creativity. Yeah, I already said that. Sorry. Antagonism is the middle section of traits that both explicit and implicit narcissism share, including reactive anger, arrogance, lack of empathy. Didn't I just cover arrogance? Oh my god, yes. Oh. I want to squeeze my head, but it's not. I don't want to because I have to finish this video. Arrogance, lack of empathy, manipulativeness, exploitiveness, entitlement, and cynicism/distrust. It explains grandiose and vulnerable narcissism's association with interpersonal pathologies involving entitlement, manipulation, and callousness. Callousness? It is categorically different from agentic extroversion and neuroticism, but there is so many overlaps between agentic extroversion antagonism and neuroticism antagonism. Again, do your own research. Entertain the thought. I probably should start at the very beginning. Please entertain the thoughts here without accepting them. Just because there's so much that I don't fully understand, and I also am not a professional. Like, I don't research this. Well, actually, I like researching this. It's fun. I've already done that. From the two-factor model, if you remember a little bit earlier, the two-factor model from 1991, the two-factor model had grandiose vulnerability grandiose exhibitionism and something vulnerability. What's that other word? Vulnerability sensitivity. In that paper, this is his quote of the commonalities both of those share that I told you about earlier, but I didn't touch on. Both vulnerability, sensitivity, and grandiosity exhibitionism factors share in common narcissistic characteristics of conceit, self-indulgence, and disregard for the needs of others. Social validation seems to be very prominent in this. I keep seeing it. Antagonism, covered that from 9 subsets. From the 5-factor narcissism inventory, which I believe I've already covered. Reactive anger, shame, indifference, arrogance, lack of empathy, manipulativeness, exploitiveness, entitlement, and cynicism. I have covered that. All right, so I'm just going to go, one more thing. So there's also antagonism, agreeableness dimension, a 7-factor structure, and a 5-factor structure. I don't want to do that because I'm already confusing myself with all the words that I'm saying. If you want to read, so there's one paper that went on, this was a 2019 paper, went on antagonism, agreeableness dimension, which creates like more basic bipolar traits of antagonism, agreeableness. That one's probably important because it's also Miller who did the 2016 paper or the 2012 paper. 2016 paper. The antagonism Agreeableness dimension includes these more basic bipolar traits: callousness versus compassion, immorality versus morality, distrust versus trust, combativeness versus affability, and arrogance versus modesty. There's also a 7-factor structure and a 5-factor structure. Refer to my paper, because I want to. I'm confusing myself. Okay. This is a whole bunch of not a today research, but a future reference for your own exploratory pleasure. Quote citations are in my paper. One hour and 5 minutes. Damn. That's a lot of talking. Narcissism, and the illusion of confidence. So it's March right now. Back in December, so 3 months ago, when I first started writing this paper, it was all around one thing I saw on Instagram, which is something around, I don't remember exactly what the post was about, but something around the idea that women sometimes misinterpret false confidence from narcissists as actual confidence. Confidence, kindness, there's a couple other traits. There's a lot of things that people find generally attractive from a romantic aspect, from a romantic aspect, of which confidence means a lot. It's like, I'm going to do a paper on this of, like, I don't want to mentally go on the tangent. As of right now, the paper I'm working on is confidence, capacity, and failure, the tenacity complex, and the courage trichotomy, which is overall like the zero tolerance for average mediocrity. There's also like the dark tetrad, failure, quitting, procrastination, stagnation, the anterior midcingulate cortex, inaction, confidence versus courage. There's a lot of there's a lot within confidence. However, I do reference the Bayesian principle, which is from mathematics, or this paper that I found, 2015 paper, which is titled Confidence as Bayesian Probability, which applies the Bayesian principle from mathematics, which is your belief should change proportionally to how surprising the new evidence is. Yeah. I don't want to go into this too much just because if you want to read it. If you want to read it, read it. This is going to be a topic of another paper, but around the idea that narcissism can be seen from a confidence perspective and in the context of relationships and limerence being like the infatuation of new people, of like infatuation of novelty. Limerence, you get the butterflies, you get like the cool stuff, like, oh, this is the right, this is the one, this is the perfect you can't change them. All right. Again, that'll also be another paper. You can't change them personality, you can't change her personality or mentality. Limerence, if you want to go on the tangent, limerence is such a fascinating subject, and can be the reason why people fall for narcissists. I think I've already said, I think I've said this. Narcissists tend to date other narcissists as, like, I guess, social validation or emotional validation. It's like, yes, I have an inflated self-ego. You have an inflated self-ego. Maybe we could both have inflated self-egos while making this relationship work. And I'm sure people get it to work. Doesn't make any sense to me. Oh, yeah. I haven't mentioned it here. I can't remember the source of the next point, which is the tendency for narcissists to be in relationships with other narcissists. Maybe social validation, emotional reciprocity / comfort. Self-esteem and cynicism. Did I define what cynicism is? Cynicism is the opposite of interpersonal trust. Cynicism is on the idea that human nature is inherently evil and egotistic, whereas interpersonal trust is that human nature is inherently good. I try to find the good in everyone, but not everybody has the good worth looking at, so it's also keep that in mind. I'll briefly cover this. Self-esteem seems to explain the relations between narcissism and certain positive outcomes related to psychological health and well-being. Agentic extroversion manifested a significant positive relation to cynicism. Neuroticism, significant negative relation to cynicism. And antagonism had a null relationship, meaning no relationship to self-esteem. Oh, self-esteem, not cynicism. Anyways. Oh, this is going to be fun. Agentic extroversion, positively related to self-esteem. Neuroticism, negative relation to self-esteem. And antagonism, no relation, no empirical relation. Because I'm sure there's, like, from a subjective point of view, you probably could say there's a relationship, but from this one paper, it has a null relationship with self-esteem. And then from a different paper, agentic extroversion was positively related to trust, unrelated to cynicism. Antagonism, negative to trust, positive to cynicism. And narcissistic neuroticism, not related to trust or cynicism. There's a lot to unpack there, but this paper is not specifically on that. It was more of side tangents, like, hey, here's some other cool stuff if you ever want to go into it. Childhood development, which is related to attachment theory. This one personally I found fascinating. I covered this in the very, very beginning. This is more expansive and adds more quotes. Kernberg's model, which is inflated self-reliance, leads to defensive grandiosity. Narcissism is developed as a defense against feeling unloved, which is multiple different things. Parental devaluation, coldness, and rejection leads to the child defensively withdrawing and developing a mistrust for others. They gain a mentality of only I can be trusted, which leads to inflated self-reliance and defensive grandiosity. The child learns that the other, meaning other people, is dangerous or rejecting, and so they retreat into a fortress of grandiosity to protect a very fragile, devalued inner self. And they get the mentality of, I don't need you, I am everything, and you are nothing, because if I need you, you will hurt me. That's sad. And I'm sure I know a lot of people like that. It's just, they don't tell me because they're too defensive. Parental devaluation, coldness, and rejection. If I remember correctly, that's related to infant attachment theory, which is, you know what? I'm not going to make a connection there because I might get it wrong. So I'm not going to make the connection. I'll make the connection when I go into attachment theory. From a 1999 paper, Kernberg theorized that narcissism emerged from childhood lacking adequate love from a caregiver, especially from the pre-Oedipal years, roughly before age 3. Narcissism is developed as a defense against feelings of abandonment or loss, as well as the rage associated with this abandonment. First, underneath the inflated self-image, the narcissist is constantly at risk of experiencing intense feelings of fear, abandonment, and doubt. Second, the narcissist strives to maintain an inflated self-image in close relationships to protect the self from this experienced abandonment. From a 1987 paper, Kernberg sees narcissism developing as a consequence to parental rejection or abandonment. This parental devaluation hypothesis states that because of cold and rejecting parents, the child defensively withdraws and becomes to believe that it is only himself or herself that can be trusted and relied on and therefore loved. Kohut's model is not outgrowing normal childhood narcissistic needs. Narcissism as a developmental arrest from unmet mirroring. 3 different points. Childhood narcissism is normal but fails to mature appropriately, which leads to a failure of normal developmental processes such as inadequate mirroring and idealization, which leads to the person remaining stuck seeking mirroring and idealization in adult relationships. Second point, the narcissist is constantly hungry for the self-object, the other person, to provide the validation they cannot provide themselves. They are desperately seeking a connection to regulate their own temperature. There is, you know what, I want to go on this tangent before I forget about it. Quotes. Third point, I'll get into third point, oversimplification. Please look at me and tell me I'm wonderful so that I can feel real. That's a really sad way of living, but it is what it is. And also, this is not explicit if you see this, therefore it means that. It's more of like, here is an idea. It can come in different forms. So, because psychology is psychology, like humans are just fascinatingly overcomplicated. Oh, come on, where did I put it? No, I can't find it. Oh, I had like a section on my papers, or a section in my website specifically so I can reference other podcast quotes. Oh, jeez. Quotes. Oh, no. I put this in a different section. Whoop. I have one section on life is what you make of it. Life is what you make. Here we go. Perfect. All right. Overarching concepts from podcasts. Here we go. Trauma. I would buy myself a drink. Oh, there's one by Dry Creek Dwayne on Modern Wisdom. Fascinating. Like, I absolutely love. Like, this is you think cowboy, you think older cowboy, and you think like conservative Christian, very God-centric. And like, there's no way you can fight him emotionally because you're like, this guy's way too tough. The thermostat effect, which was regulate their own temperature. This is from Lori, I don't want to say her name wrong. Last name Gottllieb. This is from Huberman Lab. How to find and be a great romantic partner. Timestamp 2 hours, 13 minutes, and 11 seconds. I don't think I have a direct quote. The idea that when people grow up with parents or peers who overreact with little things, they grow up either not knowing what they want or don't want to go out of someone else's comfort zone. Relates to documented emotional dysregulation model, conflict avoidance patterns, learned helplessness and people pleasing, and boundary confusion. These individuals often become the family's emotional thermostat, constantly adjusting their behavior to keep everyone else comfortable while losing touch with their own emotional needs and preferences. This pattern often continues into adulthood, where they may struggle with decision-making, assertiveness, and knowing what they actually want versus what they think others want them to want. The thermostat effect. 2 hours, 13 minutes, 11 seconds. I watched the entire episode. I should probably rewatch it, actually. Back to narcissism. 1987, Kohut's theory is actually a developmental theory of the self, where pathological narcissism can result from failure to idealize the parents because of rejection or indifference. From a 1999 paper, Kohut described a different etiology of narcissism. Narcissism is a normal aspect of infant development. There was a period at the end of that. Narcissism is a normal aspect of infant development. Narcissism is maintained through two strategies, mirroring and idealization. According to Kohut, this childhood narcissism will gradually fade as the mirroring and idealization processes slowly diminish and are replaced by more realistic views of self and other. If these narcissistic needs are not met, however, the children of this world, the individual will maintain a defensive and inflated self-image and will try to meet these mirroring and idealization needs in the context of adult interpersonal relationships. You could go on there's so many different things about this, but I also don't want to overcomplicate this already. 1 hour and 20. Oh my goodness, I've been talking for an hour and 20 minutes. Oh my goodness. Million's model. Million's model. Millon. Million's model. Inflated self-image that cannot be sustained in the outer world. Narcissism as learned grandiosity from excessive positive reinforcement. 3 points. Parental overvaluation and excessive praise leads to the child treated as special/perfect and develops unrealistic self-illusions, which leads to inflated self-image that cannot be sustained in the outer world. Like Kernberg's model, this person is covering up deep wounds and insecurities with a facade. They have high self-esteem on the surface and a low regard for others' opinions unless those opinions serve them. Oof. That's a deep cut. As a good friend would say, that's a deep cut. From a 1987 paper, Millen and is what he calls a social learning theory of narcissism. Social learning theory of narcissism. This view sees narcissism developing not as a response to parental devaluation, but rather as a consequence to parental overvaluation. The child is treated as a special person, provided with a lot of attention, and led by parents to believe he or she is lovable and perfect. According to Millen, such unrealistic overvaluations will lead to self-illusions that cannot, quote unquote, cannot be sustained in the outer world. Page 165. Oh, it's on page 165, if you wanted to know that. Since we're on the topic, Millen also categorized narcissists under a couple categories. This is separate from narcissism. Millen had some other stuff. I just added it because I thought it was cool, but it doesn't necessarily relate to everything else. I probably should have mentioned that in the paper. A couple different categories that he categorized narcissists. He? Or is it she? Oh, I also have a footnote here. I'm going to cover that in a second. Status and entitlement, seduction and charm, exploitation and deceit, covering up insecurity, and self-righteousness. 5 different categories. He labeled each one. I don't know why I didn't put the labels in here. If you want to just use whichever AI model you like and just have it search and confirm what those 5 different categories are. And those categorizations of narcissists is based off a couple polarities. Pleasure, pain. Is the person seeking rewards or avoiding distress? Passive, active. Do they wait for things to happen or do they make them happen? And self-other. Do they look to themselves for validation or to others? I'm not going to go too deep into Millen's work. I keep saying Million's work. It's like there's no other I. There's just one I. Millen's work, since it could probably take up an entire paper, and it probably would. I might do a supplementary paper on narcissism later on, but as of right now, I've got other papers I'm working on, so I'd rather do that and maybe come to narcissism later. Mirroring. I probably should have covered this. I did not see the footnote wherever this footnote was in this paper. Anyways, mirroring, or the chameleon effect, refers to a non-conscious mimicry of the postures, mannerisms, facial expressions, and other behaviors of one's interaction of one's partners, such that one's behaviors passively and unintentionally changes to match that of others in one's current social environment. Mirroring, kind of touched on it, and hopefully I'll look back on this video and then I'll be able to make a new paper. Mirroring versus whatever that other word was that I said earlier. Reciprocity. 2 different things, but that's, again, separate topic. If you want to know the etymology of narcissism, where the word came from, I covered this in the very beginning. The name of narcissism comes from the Greek mythological figure Narcissus, who fell in love with his own reflection. There is a public domain version of the Metamorphoses of Ovid. Project Gutenberg has a free translation. I believe it's a public domain translation. Ebook 21765, if you wanted to know that. The actual section of that, book 4, Fable 7. It's if I included the quote unquote, the actual quote itself, it'd be 2 pages long here, and I didn't want to waste paper. I do have the summary from the translator. From the translator. If you know Greek mythology, Jupiter is the equivalent of Zeus in Roman. Jupiter is Roman. Greek is Zeus. Jupiter has a discussion with Juno on the relative pleasures of the sexes, and agree to refer to the question of one. I don't know who that is. Jupiter gives his decision in favor. Blah blah blah. On which Juno deprives him of sight, and by his first prediction is fulfilled in the case of Narcissus, who, despising the advances of all females, at last pines away with a love for himself and changed into a flower which bears his name. Sorry, there's a lot of context to that. Basically, from what I remember, and don't quote me on this, that's a bed bug. That's nice. From what I remember, Narcissus is basically this guy who was the most handsome and beautiful man who could, what was it? Who had both women and men trying to vie for his attention. And eventually he got to this, I think he was like out hunting or something, and he found this pristine pond, or yeah, I think it was a pond. This beautiful pond that had not been touched by nature, that had not been touched by other people. It was like no animal had been there. It was just crystal clear. And he saw his reflection in the water, and he fell in love with it. And that's all he could think of. And there's this other, and there was this, I think one of his previous people who, because he didn't accept their advances, laid a curse on him that he will not be able to find the love that he's trying to find, or that whoever he pursues, he cannot get. So then this happens, he falls in love with his own image, and because it's water, because he cannot actually have that, he ended up dying at the flipping pond. I don't understand sometimes. Greek mythology is weird, okay? I think that I'm pretty sure that was like the idea of it. That is pretty much the end. This is 1 hour and I've talked for an hour 30 minutes. Oh my goodness. Okay. That's pretty much the end of this. I've covered all of narcissism. I hope it wasn't overly complicated. This next part, if you want to stick around, is a couple quotes about it's just because I think it would be interesting. Healthy selfishness. This is like a bonus, kind of, because I covered healthy selfishness, narcissistic selfishness, and pathological altruism in the beginning. This is more expansive on what it means to be healthy selfishness, but this is more from a philosophical standpoint, not necessarily a scientific standpoint. I have to stop saying like my filler words are terrible. To reiterate what I said in the beginning, healthy selfishness is a practice of appropriately prioritizing your needs and well-being. Narcissistic selfishness goes beyond healthy self-interest into a pattern where others exist primarily as extensions of the self or means to an end. Pathological altruism is when helping others actually causes harm, either to yourself or paradoxically to those you're trying to help. The core distinction is that healthy selfishness stems from self-love and abundance, enabling genuine care for others, while narcissistic selfishness stems from inner emptiness and insecurity, preventing authentic connection. There's also such thing as collateral damage, where actions inadvertently have unintended consequences. Chances are very important. There's also, I think I put this in the longingness complex. There's Pavlov's conditioning. Sorry, longingness complex is my own personal thing about a subjective view on we desire the love we desire the love we believe we deserve. That's an opinionated paper, but I just wanted to add that context. There is like Pavlov's conditioning, where someone who is in a toxic relationship where the other person naturally becomes narcissistic, not because they are narcissistic, but because like one person, jeez, this is an entire tangent on itself, and I'm not going to go too much into it because I think I've already written it out, where in this specific thought experiment that I'm playing with, where one person, while not narcissistic in themselves, start to build dependency on the other person. So it's like, let's say cleaning the dishes or something. It's like, I naturally will go put something in the sink, put some water in it just so it like softens out the stuff, and then I'll clean it later once the water sat there for a while. But if the other person came by and cleaned it because they saw, it was in the sink and I'm not doing anything right now, so I'm going to be nice, and I want to be nice because I love this person and I'm going to clean it for them. And then that starts. First is a rare occurrence. Second is a coincidence. Third is a pattern. Happens once, happens twice, happens 3 times. At some point, it becomes a habit. And when it becomes a habit, it becomes, wow, every single time this person puts this thing, I have to go clean it. And now it becomes a burden. And now you get like like unrealistic selfishness. Like that's Pavlov's conditioning. There's so many different things. You know what? I have it here, and this is the extras, so I'm going to have a little bit of fun with this. Not attachment theory, not this, not that. Where is it? Here, I think it's right here. Okay. This is... Yeah, this is just going to be extra if you want to have fun with this. Pavlov's conditioning. Over time, we can be conditioned to do something, whether consciously and willingly, or subconsciously and possibly unwillingly trained. Whereas, let me... Yeah, so I've got two creative renditions, which is Pavlov's treadmill and Schrodinger's limerence. This is, again, love-based. Pavlov's conditioning. Over time, we can be conditioned to do something, whether consciously and willingly or subconsciously and possibly unwillingly trained. For example, willingly can be learning a new habit or going on a diet, whereas unwillingly can be like a constant state of fear because of someone else's behavior. I did not end with the parenthesis. I started with the parenthesis. I did just the tiny little things. Conditioning, you just like over time stuff happens. I think from Atomic Habits, I keep hearing this from Chris Williamson. Atomic Habits, like first is an exception, second is the start of a new habit. Like it's that fast. Habits, behaviors, all that stuff happen really fast, and having the awareness, especially with all this stuff like in this economy, awareness, no, like you just don't have time for that. Anyways, back to healthy selfishness. That was a random tangent. Healthy selfishness. From Oscar Wilde. I can be perfectly happy by myself, but if after I am free, a friend of mine had a sorrow and refused to allow me to share it, I should feel it most bitterly. He who can look at the loveliness of the world and share its sorrow and realize something of the wonder of both is in immediate contact with divine things and has got as near to God's secret as anyone can get. So it's like healthy selfishness. Openness. I'm using that quote in this healthy selfishness scenario where it's like, I trust you, you trust me, I think. And if you don't share this sorrow with me, I'm not going to criticize you. I'm not going to ridicule you. I'm not going to say, oh, you're just not a man. It's like, no, there's a unhealthy disregard for feelings. Not, I wouldn't say from a societal perspective, from a social media perspective, not necessarily as a reflection of society as a whole, but a reflection of the best parts that other people want to show on social media. So it's like an inflated idealistic reality. So that's why I had that one quote from a different person. Before we start the discussion of psychological aspect of selfishness and self-love, the logical fallacy in the notion that love for others and love for oneself are mutually exclusive and should be stressed. If it is a virtue to love my neighbor as a human being, it must be a virtue, not a vice, to love myself since I am a human being too. The idea expressed in the biblical love thy neighbor as thyself implies that respect for one's own integrity and uniqueness, love for and understanding one's own self, cannot be separated from respect for and love and understanding of another individual. The love for my own self is inseparably connected with the love for any other self. What was that from? 1947. So that's not my quote. This is from a 2020 paper, which quoted someone. I can't remember. For our part, we must not prejudge the case. We must not assume that selfish or unselfish behavior is either good or bad until we can actually determine where the truth exists. It can be that at certain times selfish behavior is good, and at other times it is bad. It also may be that unselfish behavior is sometimes good and at other times bad. The dichotomy between... I hope I didn't do like a lot of mouth noises, or I hope that my audio processor doesn't have a lot of mouth noises, because that's going to be really uncomfortable to listen to. The dichotomy between selfishness and unselfishness disappears altogether in healthy people because in principle, every act is both selfish and unselfish. 2 Timothy 3, 2-7. This is the WebU version because I like the ESV version, or even the King James version is good too, but this one's public domain explicitly, and it's more modernized English, so it's easier to understand. 2 Timothy 3. For men will be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, arrogant, blasphemers, blasphemy, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, fierce, not lovers of good, traitors, headstrong, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, holding a form of godliness, but having denied its power. Turn away from these also, for some of these are people who creep into houses and take captive gullible women, loaded down with sins, led away by various lusts, always learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. That one, sorry, I think I added that one for the narcissistic selfishness, like the very extreme of pathological stupidity. Odious complex. All right, so that's about it. Hour 36. I don't want to waste any more of your time. So, yeah, that's about it. That's narcissism in a nutshell, and I kind of like it without being edited. And if you want to read the paper, it's on my website. It might also be on Substack. The only problem with Substack is that it doesn't let me upload the images of, so I don't know if you can see it on the camera. The way that I structure my papers, it's to be visually easier to read. And so like if you want to print it out, it's meant to be printed out. However, Substack compresses stuff, requires a certain level. Like I can't put like high resolution images, otherwise they're like, this is high resolution, we don't need that. So if you want the actual PDF, it's on my website, free to download. If you know me, send me a text message or send me something. Or if you send me something on Instagram, I'll send you over the PDF. PDF is like so much better looking quality. That's about it. I've got no outro. If you want my shirts, I got stuff on shop.strap611.com, and that's it. I don't want the unnecessary outros. So that's it. Have a good one. I love you. And I should probably drink more caffeine. Probably not. Don't drink too much caffeine. Save your sanity. Don't over drink caffeine. Just not medical advice, but also just friendly advice.